want to thank Stella and the program committee for continuing to invite me to speak periodically. I always enjoy it. I want to do a shout out to Libby for being the service leader and all the service leaders that do this work. I've done it a few times now, and it's not as easy as it looks, and she does it with such aplomb. And also, she is serving as the rotating chair of this board, and her current her 1 month term is ending this week. We'll talk about it. I'm on next month, and after that, you'll have to figure out something. But she and I have been rotating for a little while. I just really, really appreciate the job that you've done. Thank you so much. My daughter and I took what I am calling a transcendentalist road trip recently, meeting up at Logan Airport in Boston and making our way to Concord, Massachusetts, and Walden Pond, made famous by Henry David Thoreau. And let me give you a little quick report on Walden Pond. What they've been saying is true. There's some construction being built around there. And when we were there, they were leaf blowing all the trails. So Thoreau would have probably been highly irritated. And we also went to Amherst, where poet Emily Dickinson, who I'd like to call an almost Unitarian, made her lifelong home in a large yellow mansion there, scribbled her hundreds of verses on whatever scraps of paper she could find, mostly like the backs of envelopes, from the spacious, and I'm telling you, she had the best bedroom, spacious comfort of her front bedroom with a view to the street. And she would send things down to the children. She was a good baker. So, she wasn't all that isolated. But let me tell you, that bedroom is something else. Hundreds of miles and many hours together on picturesque fall back roads with pumpkin stands and maple sugar stands, and then more tedious interstate highways. Along the way, we caught up on the news of her life, on the news from my school-age granddaughters' lives. We enjoyed each other's pretty rare company, and we shared the experience. All went well, until the final 2 days of conversations on the way back to dropping off the rental car, the last worn-out morning of our shared getaway, depleted of our own mother-child memories and breaking news, more than ready to go our separate ways home, with 50 miles left to travel. It is then that the talk turned the way it almost always does in our spread-out family to sentences beginning with, "Can you believe?" And going on to statements like, after I said, she said, "Can you believe?" "How messy Linda and Larry's house is." "Can you believe how much Bill and Sally fight in front of their kids?" "Can you believe that Jonah and Sarah are trying to sneak a dog into their co-op apartment, and how long is that going to last?" Or, to switch things out a little bit, "I heard this," or "I heard that." Miles and miles of reports about other people, mostly negative tales. Perhaps true, perhaps not, but accompanied by its own familiar giddy energy. Okay, any of you who gossip, you know what I'm talking about, the giddy energy. The rush that seems to naturally come from being human, from being a social animal, from talking about others in one form or another. Partaking in this, even as I was and am familiar with a quotation by Rebecca Pidgeon that challenged us to really understand how far gossip travels by suggesting this: take a feather pillow up on a roof, slice it open, and let the feathers fly away on the wind. Then to go and find every single feather and restuff the pillow. That is what gossip does. I knew that. Did you remember that? We've all heard that. Idle and yet destructive gossip, the same kind that can be found in the recently published children's book, The I Herds, written by Emily Kilgore, the story of a kid named Mason who was constantly gossiping and sending rumors out about everyone in school. Because of this, the I Herds love him. And if I had the book with me, the I Herds look like little flying insects. They come up to his ear and tell him things. They sneak up on him and whisper all kinds of rumors, real things or pretend things, innocent or mean things, distracting rumors like, I heard TJ forgot his homework. I heard Amira is scared of thunderstorms. I heard Valeria broke Maya's crayon on purpose. It didn't really matter if the I heards were true or made up, harmless or hurtful. He repeated them right away to as many children as possible as fast as he could. I heard the principal locks kids in his closet. I heard Isaac eats his own boogers. I heard Sylvie's only friend is her pet squirrel. In this children's story, the rumor-spreading child gets increasingly isolated from other children, except these winged I-herds who buzz in from unknown places and attach themselves to people who are vulnerable to them, who really enjoy getting the little buzz and spreading it out. The other kids, however, don't want to be around someone who blurts out so many things about them so quickly and so cruelly. So Mason is more and more often alone. He needs to change. So he has a choice to keep the I-herds to himself or to share them with others, to stop repeating words that hurt and to only share the good. I believe that children's books are often boldly prophetic, and certainly this one is, with lessons for adults as well. I think we all agree that this has been a high season for I-herds in this society. Gossip, defined often as informal talk about people who are not present. According to New York Times essayist Michael Leibowitz, in his opinion piece that was printed in the New York Times just a little while ago on gossip as a universal feature of human culture, and his interviews with gossip abstainers, condemned by Confucius gossip, who is reported to have said that the gossip monger is the outcast of virtue. Gossip forbidden in the Quran, described by novelist E.M. Forrester in The Passage of India as one of those half-alive things that try to crowd out our real lives. Outlawed, he tells us, by a neighborhood in the Philippines, making gossip an offense punishable with a fine and an afternoon of picking up litter. Nonetheless, admitted to as a practice, albeit a really bad one, by more than half of all Americans. Now I'm going to test you now. Please raise your hand if you gossip. Good. Even while more than 2/3 of Americans believe gossiping is usually or always bad for society. And beyond the standard stuff of gossip, lying condemnations and violence inciting speech, I think, is at an all-time high. Shortly after the Democratic candidate for president won her nomination and began her whirlwind round of campaign rallies, in fact, during her appearance in Atlanta, do you remember that? She took her opponent straight on for his choices around civil or uncivil discourse, going after him on national television for what he himself has admitted are ad hominem personal attacks he says he is absolutely entitled to, blasting out his deep lack of respect for her in his descriptions of her, from being dumb as a rock to a communist, Marxist, fascist, which might not be a bad thing, and worse. We know some of the worst. I don't want to talk about the worst. With a light and bemused tone but deadly serious message, she tells the crowd that the other candidate and his running mate certainly have a lot to say about her. Some of it just plain weird. Looking straight at him through the camera, she calls him dismissively by his first name. And we all know what that... I'm being really careful about not violating our 501c3 status here. And executes this zinger. As the saying goes, she says, if you have something to say, say it to my face. One large step in winning the war of the wagging tongue, don't you think? Say it to my face. Say it to my face, an idiomatic expression that conveys a challenge or request for someone to express their thoughts or their opinions or their criticisms directly and openly, especially when it is something derogatory or inflammatory or otherwise negative. As one writer describes this notion of say it to my face, in today's digital age when communications often, too often, take place behind screens and keyboards, the power of direct and face-to-face communications is sometimes, mostly often overlooked. The candidate admonished her opponent to do this, to say it to her face. And then what happened? The crowd roared, especially it seemed many of the younger people, perhaps linking this saying to the popular song which was recorded in 2023, Say It to My Face, by American singer and songwriter Madison Beer. As the chorus asked, tell me what's the situation. I've been racking my brain, just want some answers if I ask you, but I know you'll never say it to my face. Say it to my face. Madison Beer, a bat mitzvah Jewish girl whose consciousness around speech may well flow from her religious tradition, one that in the words of Musar Jewish values teacher Alan Marinas recognizes that the ability to utter intelligible speech is not only a distinctive characteristic of the human species, it is truly a wonder. A wonder. My vocal cords, he writes, makes a series of sounds that create vibrations in the air that enter your ears and are transmitted to your brain, where they are converted back to the meaning that organized in my brain. How wondrous is that? How wondrous. It is what we humans do most is speak, he says. It is what distinguishes us from other creatures. As Libby shared in this quote from Rabbi Shlomo Wolbe earlier in this celebration of life, Jewish thought and practice is very concerned with the right use of speech because it recognizes, like any other powerful resource, speech can both be creative and healing and dangerous and destructive. Depends where it comes from and the intention. This week in the Jewish calendar, we are in the closing days of the month of Elul, a month of introspection called, and I love it, the on-ramp month to the Jewish high holidays of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, an opportunity for individuals to engage at this time every year in personal stock-taking, taking reflection on one's actions and behaviors, and making necessary changes, including in our speech. In one Rosh Hashanah reading on hard questions, we are asked to take what I would like to call an annual ethical inventory. Asking ourselves these questions, I invite you to ask yourself the question, how much time did we waste in the year that is now gone? Was there real companionship with our children, or was there living together and growing apart? Were we there to help our mates, or did we take them for granted? There are many ways to go in using this actively reflective time to take responsibility, to engage in real introspection, to engage in real repentance and repair of our human behaviors and attitudes. Did we live this past year by false values? Did we deceive others? Were we sensitive to the rights and feelings of those who work for us or with us? The kind deed, did we perform it? Or did we postpone it? And then this, the unnecessary cutting remark, did we say it or did we hold it back? Evil speech, wrong speech, is called Lashon Hara, which in Hebrew means literally bad tongue. Lashon Hara, anything said that degrades or diminishes the respect a listener has for subject or causes harm in any way. Physically, emotionally, financially, speaking badly about someone or yourself, even if it's true. I want to say this is how radical it is. Speaking badly about someone or yourself, even if it's true, is evil speech in Judaism. Speaking ill, even if the one being spoken about says that they don't mind, Even if the listener will not do anything to actively harm the one being spoken about, the speaker still transgresses the prohibition of speaking ill. Cursed is one who hurts a friend in private, but one who speaks ill in the presence of the subject transgresses an additional prohibition because it's caused shame in front of others. A single word of Lashon Hara to only one person is considered a severe sin. And in Judaism, I know you're going like sin, it means missing the mark. It means profoundly missing the mark. So saying a single word of evil speech to one person transgresses this, and it's a severe sin. But the more people who hear it, the worse it is. We are asked, we're advised, we're admonished before speaking about another person. One should approach that person to determine the exact nature and context of the issue. So central is it to the teachings of Judaism that Michael Leibowitz recalls that teachings against bad speech, especially gossip, was reinforced constantly in her Jewish day school from a very young age. Reinforced by her parents, reinforced by her classmates. A teaching that reinforces the belief that through one's tongue, one can indeed reach the lowest depths of sin, miss the mark, or reach the highest heights of holiness. With our tongues, we can commit mighty transgressions without number, and with our tongues, we can do mitzvahs, what are good deeds, without limitation. It is believed by theist Jews that the Holy One, that God, forgives all things except Lashon Hara, forgives anything else but evil speech. They believe that God has commanded that in order to become more godly, to live in the image of God, a primary way, perhaps the primary way, is to elevate our speech, that through this we become more compassionate people. Believe that? So rigorous and mostly all-encompassing are the strictures against speech about others that this standard is difficult, if not impossible, to observe. The Talmud, which is the commentaries about Jewish law, concedes that virtually everyone will violate the laws of ethical speech at least once a day. Nonetheless, those who try, who make an effort to practice these regulations, will find they soon start speaking in a far fairer manner. Like the child in the story about the eye-herds who was given a choice to keep rumors and lies and other harmful speech to themselves or continue to share them like a pillow full of feathers, that's a choice he's presented with. I am setting myself the High Holy Days task this year of choosing silence in the face of verbal harm. Will you join me? In this time of such toxic language and the danger it creates, it seems like a pressing personal goal for me, and I would maintain maybe for all of us, to say caring words instead of hurtful ones, to lift each other up instead of knocking each other down with the power of words, with speech, that perhaps with practice, perhaps with patience and empathy, everyone can do this, at least more of the time, and perhaps most of the time. In the words of the Sufi poet Rumi, before you speak, let your words pass through 3 gates. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Maybe so. Thank you.